like 9, 10, 11 years of age. And then things got kind of bad, a lot of abuse. We'd be locked in the basement. My brother would be locked on the porch in the middle of winter. So it was a lot of manipulation, and I've been through sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. But when you're that young, you can't say anything. You know, I'm happy to have a roof over my head and food in front of me.
Thanks today for joining us on our Leaving Care podcast. This is Lee and Brendan. Today we're interviewing a young person called Theresa, all the way from upstate New York. So welcome, Theresa, and thank you for coming to us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Great to see you. And I wanted to say as well to our viewers, you're going to meet Theresa today as part of our interview, and I'll be reading out Theresa's bio. But I just wanted to let you know to like and subscribe and share our content, because part of getting the story out there, like to meet people like Theresa and other wonderful young people, adult care leavers, whether it's in Australia or beyond, it's fantastic because people hear about our channel, and then that's how that we find out, and that's how we get them on the podcast, so to speak, isn't it, Theresa? So that's fantastic.
Sure.
So to start off, I'm just going to tell you about this wonderful woman in front of us, Theresa. Theresa was raised in upstate New York. Her story starts at age 2 when she was placed in foster care with 2 of her siblings. Her mother had drug and alcohol issues, and her father fought hard to get custody. But unfortunately, they were placed in care, and it took years for their dad to even have visitations with them. They encountered a large amount of abuse for 3 years in a foster home in Port Crane, New York, until they were permanently placed in foster care, who continued the cycle. It wasn't until Therese was 12 that they were officially adopted, and things got even worse. By age 17, Therese was moved out of adopted parents. By age 17, Theresa was moved out of her adopted parents due to neglect and abuse, leaving behind her brothers, which was one of her biggest regrets in life. Now, as a 30-year-old, Theresa can look back and reflect on all that she has overcome, and continues to heal her heart in ways that she never knew possible. Theresa hopes that her story can help someone who is struggling with moving on, getting closure, and starting a life of happiness and healing. So thank you so much, Theresa, for your vulnerability and your openness in order to see healing for other young people.
Yeah, thank you. And so I suppose, just so the viewers can get to know you a little bit, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do during the week, and just sort of general life?
Yeah, sure. So I live in upstate New York. I live in the middle of the country, so it's just all farmland. I'm an avid horseback rider. I have a horse named Heaven and a dog named Moose. So I'm an animal lover to the T. I wanted to be a veterinarian. A couple years ago, I ended up applying to dental hygiene school. So I went through hygiene school, and I'm a dental hygienist now. So that is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I always wanted to hold some kind of professional degree. I always knew that I was the kind of person to help other people, no matter what kind of, if it was nursing or being a doctor or, whatever. So I finally got to that point in my life. So I'm just like an outdoorsy. I do a little modeling. I've walked in New York Fashion Week 3 times, and I'm doing it again this fall. So yeah, I have a lot of different avenues of interest, so I'm kind of just like all over the place all the time, but I don't see it as a bad thing.
No.
And your horse is called Heaven.
Yeah, her name is Heaven. Yeah, I did not name her. Her mom's name was Nevaeh, so it's Nevaeh backwards. Yeah, so.
Wow. And dog Moose, who we met.
And Moose.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can see the animal lover in you just from your conversation. I've had the same heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, Theresa, if you could let us know a little bit about your journey before entering, do you call it care in New York, like state care or what?
Yeah, yeah. So we call it foster care or,
Yeah,
the system. We call it the system a lot of the time.
yeah, yeah.
But that's a lot of the stigma that comes behind people that don't really know kind of what we go through. But
Mm,
yeah, I was placed in the foster care system at the age of 2. So I have a brother who is 2 years younger than me, and then I have another brother who is 2 years older than me.
mhm,
Um, my older brother has fetal alcohol syndrome, so um, he has some developmentally, he's not socially apt to do certain things. He's just a different kind of person, and we love him for who he is, but it's been a challenge kind of getting through, um, kind of learning how to be his friend and to live life with him into our adult lives because a lot of the trauma and the things that we went through really negatively affected him, um, more so than myself. But like I said, we started out very, very young in the system. Went into our first foster home when I was 2, and it was not a good situation. I mean, we slept in a room with 15 other foster children. So I shared a bed with 2 other young children. My brothers were very little, so they slept in a crib with other babies. And I have very, very vivid memories of walking through the house and, having dinner with the family and playing outside. Like some of them are good memories, some of them are not so good. Um, but after that, I think we were there for maybe 3 years. Um, I know that they wanted to keep us together because it was 3 of us, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to do in the system because nobody wants to take on 3 kids who came from, a really bad place. So, um, we did get a couple who was interested in fostering. So we ended up staying with them. Um, we eventually stayed with them full time, and my childhood was pretty good with them for the most part until I probably entered like 9, 10, 11 years of age, and then things got kind of bad, a lot of abuse. We'd be locked in the basement. My brother would be locked on the porch in the middle of winter. So it was a lot of manipulation, and I've been through sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. But when you're that young, you can't say anything. I'm happy to have a roof over my head and food in front of me. We came to them very malnourished. We were on supplements for a really long time because we were so underweight and we were so sick. And, I'm very grateful for them being able to care for us for that amount of time and to put in that energy to get us to a good place. But I think eventually it kind of got to them as well. And the abuse got worse and worse until I eventually left when I was 17. And at that point, we had already been adopted. I was adopted when I was 12. Um, and inside me, in my gut, I did feel like we were not supposed to be in that family, obviously because of what we had gone through. But I just kept thinking in my head, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You're gonna get to a good place eventually. It's just not right now. Um, so, kids can't object to being adopted. People say you have a choice. No, you don't. You don't have a choice. You get put in a place and, the social workers will say, "Are you happy?" You have to say that you're happy because you have to start the cycle all over again if you say that you're not. So, a lot of my childhood was just like suppressing a lot of these feelings of feeling unwanted and feeling like I wasn't good enough and that I was never going to get to the good place that, all my friends had nice families and they got to, hang out with their friends and I had to go home and do chores and pretty much cater to my adopted family because that's just how they viewed me. They just viewed me as an entity, not a person. Um, so once I left, I did have to leave my brothers behind, and that killed me because that was the one thing I wanted to protect them from. was being alone, and I didn't want them to feel like I had felt. But I did have to make the executive decision to leave, and eventually they did get out. And my adopted parents separated. There was a lot of drama that went down with that. And I also have a stepbrother from the adopted family, so I'm very close with him still to this day. So I am like so grateful for that because he's a great person and he's gotten me through a lot, and I don't think he really knows that. I should probably tell him that. Um, but unfortunately, my other two brothers were not as close anymore. We met my biological parents when I was in my early 20s. My mom was in the height of her alcoholism and her drug abuse, so um, it was hard for me to get a connection with her. So I put a wall up immediately, and I really didn't reach out to her too much. Our dad, on the other hand, he actually took in one of my brothers, my older brother, and I found both him and my dad randomly one day. Like I knew where our childhood home was. So one day I was just driving and I'm like, I feel something. Like I need to go to this house. So I'm like driving on the highway and I'm just like, oh, should I do this? Should I not? And I did it and I knocked on the door and I remember just being so nervous and so like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, what is going on? Like, do I really want to open this chapter of my life? And I'm so happy that I did because it brought me, my dad, and my two brothers together, and we spent the last 6 years together, becoming very, very close. We spent Christmas, Easter, birthdays together, and then he eventually got really sick, and we put him on hospice while I was in hygiene school. So I took care of him, and he passed away. And I held his hand and I got really good closure from that, and that's all that I could ever ask for. Like that was the best moment of my life and one of the saddest times. But like I'm happy that I went through it because the pain that it brought really helped me to realize that there is a point where I can heal and there's a point where it's going to get better, it's going to get worse, but it's going to get better. And that experience just opened my eyes. Like I feel like I'm a whole new person because I got to experience this moment with my family who I didn't get to have this time with them my entire life. And um, it's sad, but it all works out in the end.